Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and I have a plugin for you this week. Amazing how that keeps happening, right? Who knew I would have a plugin being uploaded on Sunday? So here's the thing. I'm working on some fairly heavy revamps along the lines of how I updated Capacitor to be Capacitor 2. And I've got some stuff in the works, but this is a new piece of the equation that needs to work in order for that to go forwards. So the deal is, I'm hoping this particular thing is going to sound amazing and not pose any problems. And in my testing, I actually had to recode it already once because I was using it and ended up having problems with certain sort of pathologically bright audio. I was getting a kind of ringing effect, and I had to code more complication into it to fix this. So without further ado, let's go over and look at the new plugin, which is called Slew3. Here it is, this one. And what I've got here is each of the different Slew plugins that I've done sort of in a row to show you how they can work with each other, or more specifically what the differences are between each, because as is my wont, I'm not taking away earlier versions of the plugin in case you like them or in case they're more useful for some context. No, this is a new one. The hope is that it's going to be more naturalistic and analog-like in what it does. That's my hope. We'll see. Firstly, let us roll. Don't mind me moving around some plugins and things so that I can get access to all of my audio. Same old bit of music and some loud, rocky, rolly, noisy stuff. Terrible guitar solo. Here is the original Slew. The original Slew can clamp right down to next to nothing, but it's got a real grindy quality to it. This is what's in plugins like Channel. In a normal setting, it might be something like this, where you turn it off. We've got a little more extreme top end, turn it back on. And you can take out some of these highs, or lots of these highs. But the idea is that with the brightness here, we can darken that brightness without affecting much of anything else. And here's the thing. I did another version of it called Slew3, and that came out some time ago. And that's more like a magic glare reduction tool in that it has a weird effect in the super highs. In fact, what I've got here, actually come to think of it, I need to edit the frequency range of this, because as it happens, I'm running at 96K, so these Slew plugins will kick in a lot harder on 44.1K because it's sample rate dependent. This stuff is not working off of some kind of normal EQ cookbook type of stuff. This interacts with sort of the raw sample rate and how it goes from one position to another. So I should really update that so that now it's showing 96K, and you'll see why that matters in a moment. Slew3 sounds like this. This is the full bright. And the full dark, you almost don't notice it. And that's because It's having a powerful effect right up around the Nyquist frequency. It's a weird little plugin the way that it does that. So let's go to Slew3. In Slew3, here's your full brightness. And then when you crank it up, right? Dark. Now my hope is that this is going to interact with stuff in such a way that if you need to do Slew darkening, and Slew is of course amplitude dependent, so it's not just a filter. It's cutting off the energy in the extreme highs. Other stuff that I've got that does that is, for instance, acceleration. But Slew3 is the sort of analog modeling style of this. It's using a different technique. As is usual for me, it's not a modeling analog parts in an electrical simulation technique. It is a technique of the sequence of samples that we're going through and where the sound is coming from and going to and so on and so forth. And it works like this. Bright. Dark. Right? You can see that really showing up, and then we can darken it quite a lot. And the hope is that that's going to sound more natural even than, say, Slew2. Let's rewind that just a touch so that we can play with Slew2. Notice what's happening at the 30 to 48K there. Slew2 has a special ability to take this bright stuff and clamp right around the Nyquist frequency without really affecting anything else. But I can do more to demonstrate that. Here, firstly, let's why would I want to turn things down? Because I might want to turn on some white noise. So here is where I show you what each of these do as far as on the frequency response chart. Slew1 is just a harsh slew clipping. And it'll go quite dark, but it's got a sort of gritty edge to it. Slew2, check this out. What do you think of that? Slew2 does this. It's more apparent at 44.1K. It is strangely keyed in on what the sample rate is. So Slew2 basically wipes out stuff right up at the sample rate without doing much to anything else, really. Like, it has an effect, but it really clobbers stuff around the sample rate. Then Slew3, it kind of immediately has a tone to it, even if you have no clamping going on. Then you can darken it down to this, and then you'll see other funny things happening. So with white noise, or maximum effectiveness, is kind of around here. It acts a little bit like Slew2, but it's leaving that energy in there. And then it starts flattening that, and a little bit of the super top comes back in again. It's got code that's a little bit like acceleration. And we can also go to pink noise And you can see that same behavior will happen in pink noise. Like Slew2, you can completely wipe the Nyquist frequency. And Slew3, weird behavior starts happening. It is amplitude dependent, remember. This is not straight up an EQ, it's doing other things. So at this frequency, at this pink noise, it's actually got a lift happening, which I did not expect and I didn't see that coming. But there it is, because the pink noise is not that loud. If I turn up the pink noise, we start hitting an amplitude limit on it. And as we put it a little more in, we start getting a clamping effect. And again, this is an unusual little plugin as far as this goes. You see it's got a lift around the Nyquist to a certain point, at which point it clamps and isn't letting it go any louder. And we can do the same thing with a white noise. This might have to do with the stuff that I put in that causes it to not freak out if you throw really pathological stuff at it. You can plainly see this is not an EQ. Let's throw needle pulses at it, why not? That's an annoying sound. And what we get is a weird spike. And funny compression behaviors. And then, using the same thing, and remember this is loudness dependent. You're going to be hitting it at a certain level, and the clamping has to do with how that works. So if we go back to where we can hear our rocky style music again, here is the unprocessed stuff. Turn it on. Turn it up, and we start getting a darkened effect. Fully bright. In a kind of a mid setting. And then darken it some more. So yeah, there you have it. That is a typically Airwindows style plugin. And no mistake, it's a little weird. So yeah, that is Slew3. You'll note that each version of Slew has been its own little world. That Slew1, which is currently in channel, is its own style of just crudely darken everything. And then Slew2 doesn't let you shape the tone nearly as effectively, but it wipes out everything near Nyquist frequency. And it has its own little behavior. And then getting things more complicated with Slew3, my hope is that this is going to give us a tone quality that's desirable. It's got unusual behaviors, but again, I had to throw some really pathological weird audio at it and then test it, see if I could make it break or freak out, and then fix the breaks and freakouts. And I think I've got it to where it's going to behave itself on audio in general. And the question becomes, do you like the tone of this one? Because this is a new level of Slew style tone going on. It has more in common, say, with something like acceleration. It's referring to more than one previous sample to calculate its slew factor, and it's doing some complicated things to keep it from kind of flipping out and buzzing or whining or doing something, because it's a bit of a wild creature. And my hope is that that wild creatureness gives you good, slightly darkened, analogified tone qualities to the extreme super highs. But with something like that, as you saw, it acts a little unusual. And this is what makes it not just an EQ. And so I kind of got to need to test it out and see what it does. I mean, we don't really need to test it out because both of the earlier versions of Slew are still there. So you can still have those. But if you want to take it to another level, I'm interested to see where this one goes. This could be part of a whole series of other plugins coming through. For instance, if I'm able to get guitar amplifier-like sounds out of it or something like that, then that can be useful as far as bringing that forward. I'll see what I can do with it, but see what you can get out of it, and whether it meets your needs, and whether it works well with all of your weirdest audio. Because, again, this is not just a digital cookbook EQ with the GUI stuck all over it. This is something a little different. Nobody else has this. Just I have this, except for it's open source, because this is Airwindows. So if you are a coder and can deal with the MIT license, you have this too. And other people who are using Airwindows code base to do their own open source projects, they have this as well, although they might not update it immediately because keeping up with me must be a pretty demanding task. And as far as me doing this kind of thing on a week-by-week basis and continuing to come up with new stuff, I do have a Patreon. If you are in trouble and need to take care of yourself first, please do that. I don't need your Patreon money so badly that you should be going hungry or anything like that. Only if you have money to spare. I would say money to burn, but I'm not really burning it. I'm doing useful things with this stuff. But I do have the Patreon. I'll try to remember to link it this time. Sometimes I forget. It's all part of my not doing advertising stuff. I'm more interested in talking about what I'm doing rather than all the hype and, oh, like and subscribe. Oh, yeah, kind of. This is a YouTube channel. Sometimes I put music on here, too, so you could like and subscribe here, too. I never, ever say that. I guess it's a red letter day for saying all kinds of crazy things like that. Anyways, I have been Chris from Airwindows, and I hope you like Slew3. It is the latest version of a sort of bedrock basic sound processing technique that I do that's not super common. And again, this new variation on it, you plainly saw with the testing it out with the white noise and stuff, this doesn't work like anything else. And I didn't actually code in any of those behaviors. That just sort of happens from how it responds to things. So I would like to hear about how it responds to your audio as well. Like, does this do useful stuff as far as darkening unpleasantly bright things? And is it giving you a helpful effect? Who knows how people are going to use it? Like, maybe it's going to be something where people are like, hey, when I invent a fake Akai sampler sound by doing this and that and the other thing, and then I throw this exactly right on that, it starts sounding absolutely wonderful. I'm like, okay, cool. Or putting it on your guitars, or putting it on your drum overheads, or doing incredibly bright synthesizer tones with all heavily aliasing soft synths and then coloring it using this. Who knows what might happen? I guess we'll all find out together. And on that note, I will talk to you later. And I'll see some of you on Monday Q&A when I show up for that. But I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.